Welcome to another edition of The Manual. It is the Professor Alton Woods. I am Chip Rice, and our opening segment, Man, Did You See?
Man, Did You See?
So this is more of Man, Did You Hear? So my sister reached out to me, and she said she lives in Virginia. She said, I visited a church, and it was a guest preacher who was preaching, and he was preaching and was cussing in his sermon. I'm like, she said, and then the pastor later on, when he was having remarks and was talking about something, then he cussed in his sermon. And I was like, so I showed you that video of another guy who decided to use the S word in his sermon, and he did
it a lot too.
He had to rattle it off at least probably 15 times.
Easy.
Within a 1 to 2 minute period.
That's right.
I'm saying, what in the Sam Hill? Sam Hill, a cuss word.
It's an alternate version of the S word.
Right. So it's like, the question then became, is it appropriate to use profanity in the pulpit?
And this is a question being asked by two guys who will push the envelope in the pulpit.
Absolutely.
Right. So we don't, we'll use songs and lyrics from songs and some edgy, maybe double meaning words to try to grab people's attention. I think that's kind of part of it, is we know we live in a world now where everybody's competing for attention.
Okay.
Right. And so now what we're trying to do is be edgy enough that you remember what we're talking about. Right. Right. But there is a line.
Yeah. So, and where's that line? Because now I have to assess where I am and say, okay, have I crossed the line in some kind of way? But profanity should never, ever be used in the presentation of the gospel or the preaching to people.
So I had a friend, God rest his soul, he passed away, but back when I was living in Atlanta, my best friend in Atlanta, and boy, we drank all the time. We drank all the time, we cussed all the time. I think we smoked a lot of the time. But the point is this, he used to do something that I thought was interesting, and I'm sure I ridiculed him for it at the time. But then on Sunday, no cussing, no drinking, no smoking. So we got all this football to watch. Because when I tell you we were together all the time, I wasn't married, I didn't have any kids. The young lady I was dating didn't even live in Atlanta, so she wasn't in town. So I'm with him all the time.
Okay.
And we sat here and watched football all day sober.
Wow.
Was drunk every other day of the week.
Except Sunday.
Except Sunday. And it's funny because that story you're telling made me think about it, and that is there should be some parameters, whether they make sense. There's something that's off limits, whether it makes sense to you or not. Everybody should have a space that's off limits.
Right, especially when it comes to God. He even said one time, he said, now, tell them don't come and touch this mountain, because if you do, you're going to die.
That's right.
There have been times where his holiness has been challenged. And I think that sometimes that the people who are looking for God, the people who we're trying to reach, when they hear stuff like that, we say, okay, well, I can live just like you live, and I'm okay.
Yep.
And we don't see any difference between a godly life and an ungodly life.
That's right.
Yeah, so I ain't with it.
Neither am I.
This is The Manual. So we're in for another edition of The Manual. You can check us out on YouTube at The Manual for You. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I think
you hit them this time.
I got them this time. I normally forget one of them. But look up The Manual for You. Like and share, comment. Share it with some other people. Join in. I think it's good for us to have conversations as men to talk about some things, because men, we normally about our business, doing what we got to do. But a lot of times we don't talk about things that we really need to talk about, and when we don't, then we take either misinformation.
That's right.
Stuff that we grew up with. It's stuff that I was told growing up, not necessarily from my father, but from other people that, now you have to challenge in life. And if we don't have these conversations, then we don't have an opportunity to change some bad behavior.
That's right.
So that's what the manual is all about. It's the playbook on manhood. And hey, if you got some plays we need to run, by all means,
put them in the book.
Hey, anything that we need to talk about, anything we need to address, you put it in the comments, because we want to do that.
We do.
So on the last podcast, we were talking about legacy.
Yeah.
And how important a man's name is, how relevant a man's name is, and I didn't know how important my name was until I got older in life. But all of my life, I was Reverend Rice's son.
That's right.
You Pastor Rice's son. And then it was, you going to preach like your dad.
That's right. That's right.
So I heard that all my life, which probably sparked some rebellion in me.
I'm sure.
Trying to get away from church, get away from all of that, to find my own identity, not knowing how great it was for somebody to establish or recognize there's a possibility of legacy.
That's
there.
right. That's right.
Of something that my father did. So we talked about name and how important that is as far as a man is concerned, and what you pass down to your children.
That's right. I was Lil Al, I think we talked about my whole life. But I had a moment yesterday. I was watching the Golden State Memphis game. Did you see that game?
I did. I recorded it because I didn't see the end of it. I think Golden State won based on what it was, but I didn't record it. But I guess it don't matter now because whatever happened, happened.
Yeah, they won though. They did win. But Draymond Green got ejected.
Yeah, I saw that.
You saw that.
I did see that.
And then, of course, Draymond goes on his podcast, as we know Draymond would do, right? And he talks about, he assumed that the playoffs would have a different level of intensity, and he's surprised they called a flagrant foul on him, et cetera, right? And then he said something I thought was super interesting, which is why I'm bringing up this story. He said, I think I got that on reputation. And basically, Draymond's name has lost the benefit of the doubt.
You could say the same thing with Jaren Jackson.
Absolutely.
Because there were some fouls that they called on him.
Yeah.
That it was like, I'm like, that's borderline. But when you are leading the playoffs in fouls, they're looking at you, it's like, hey, if it's close, you probably did foul him because of your name.
And I only know one man that seems to defy that issue, and that's Chris Paul. Because that's a dirty joke. Chris Paul is dirty, but for whatever reason,
he's gotten a little better over the years. Maybe he's mellowed out a little bit.
Man, he kicked my man Jose Alvarado in the junk, man. He didn't get better. He didn't get better.
Chris, we love you, man.
We love you, but boy, you get away with some mess.
Yeah, you got a little edge to you.
You
we gonna tell you what God loves.
You do. But when Draymond said that, he said my reputation, and it just hit me. I was like, because in those circles, he has a name equated with a conclusion. Now, some debate, I guess, some people can debate whether it's a flagrant, whether it's a flagrant one, whether it's a flagrant at all, or whether it's a 1 or 2, whatever. The point is that it's Draymond Green, so the whistle's already half blown when he walks on the court. And his behavior, his demeanor, all of that stuff has created this.
So, it would be interesting if we would be willing to address how that it even got here. Why is it that your name is going to draw this type of ire as far as the call is concerned?
That's right.
Because I think a lot of times as men, especially when we believe we're doing better in the area, we forget what led us up to this.
That's right.
And so we don't want people to consider what it is that I did in my past. Nobody really likes to talk about the wrong that they did in their past, especially when we knew we had the capacity to be better.
That's right.
The people that we dogged out, the lies we told, the things we stole, who we were. I think that's one of the cool things about being in Christ, being a believer, that if you follow God, then he can help turn that stuff for your good.
Of course.
He can get it to a place where people see your character as being so much better that some of them will even find it hard to believe that's who you are.
That's right.
You know, it's a whole bunch of people couldn't believe that my wife, they were like, you married who? Had a little reputation in North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University for being absolutely crazy. And so she went to a crosstown school. And so, you know, some of them knew me and they knew her, but they knew us in separate
in a
circles.
different capacity. That's right.
So, but my name preceded me. You know, some of the stuff that I did. And so some of the stuff we got to own. We got to own that I made some poor decisions. And I can't get mad at people now if they still see me as a certain way. I just got to live different.
You know, it's funny. I lived that a little bit in New Orleans.
Okay.
Right? Because when I left New Orleans, the transformation wasn't complete.
Okay.
Right? So the bulk of the transformation of me happened after I left New Orleans.
Okay, right.
And so now those people I'm very close to, even though I wasn't in the same geography as them, they still took the ride with me.
Okay, they still see you in a certain way.
The people I'm close to see me in the transformed version because through phone calls, text, interactions, even though we weren't in the same geography, they took the ride. But the peripheral folks, the people I know, but for whatever reason we didn't stay connected when I left, we'll see. It's like time is frozen. They still see me as the 1998 version.
Okay.
Right.
So when you come on, it's like, hey, come on, you know, let's hit this Hennessy.
Yeah, absolutely. Come on. Yeah, nobody's thinking, oh, this dude might not be the same.
Right.
Because the name that I created then is all they remember. That's all they remember. So now I have to create a bit of a new name.
Right.
For them to understand who I am now. So we're talking about 24 years ago.
Yeah.
If you kind of think about it, I know it's been a few different stops for me in those 24 years, but from a New Orleans perspective, I left there in 98.
Okay.
Right. And other than visiting, I've not lived there or spent significant time there in the last 24 years. So for me, what I see in me is completely different. But when I go back and I see someone I went to school with or hung out with, but for whatever reason we haven't hung out in the last 20 years.
Yeah, they see you as whoever that dude was because they still have one image in their mind.
Absolutely.
Now, the smart people, when they haven't seen somebody in a long time, they'll stop and they'll say, okay, let me feel you out. Let me see where you are. You know, I'm just gonna force myself or who you were on me. You know, we don't sometimes give people an opportunity to change or to be better. We hold them hostage to whoever they were. And so sometimes you need to, you know, just if you haven't been around somebody in a long time, you got to approach it differently and say, okay, let me feel this person out, because I may like to do one thing, they might like to do something else. And
if you've grown or changed, you're more sensitive to that.
Okay,
but if you're the same person you were 24 years ago, then you won't necessarily think that way.
You won't see it.
Right. So I don't even know if it's smart as much as it is evolved. Meaning, if you know, so for example, when I go back, I don't expect anybody that I used to know to be the same because I'm not the same.
Right.
But if I were the same, I don't know that my mindset would allow me to entertain seriously how different people are.
Right, because you're looking for the same experience. You're looking for the same person, or how it coordinates with whoever you are.
That's right.
So if back in the day we used to hang out, you know, go get a fifth, or you know, go get a bag or whatever. When you come back and be like, oh yeah, hey, come on, yeah. It's like,
if you still getting fifths and bags, then that's what you're gonna want to do.
Unchanged. So
right.
That is something that some of you men may want to even consider concerning your children. If there was a time in your life where you weren't active, present in their lives, that as you're beginning to get back into it, you know, don't force it. You know, let them see who you are. Let them see what kind of character you
live
have.
It.
Yeah, you got to live it before.
You have to live it.
Because if you live it, they will change and embrace you. And some of the mindsets that they previously had, even if somebody's trying to poison them, they're going to see you for who you are.
That's right.
Instead of what somebody else is saying.
Right. I mean, you know, that's one of the things that I try to take care in, right, is how I respond, right? Because I'm more interested in you seeing this version of me, and hopefully creating enough interest and curiosity where you want to know why, right? So hey man, you want to go get a drink? No, we can hang out, but I'm good. I don't need a drink. And I just leave it at that. I don't go into the, man, let me tell you, man, Jesus did this, you know. Well, you're right, but I need you have to be at least interested,
right,
for that to be relevant to you.
Right.
I'm gonna show you what Jesus did. Right. And if I do a good enough job of showing you what he did, you'll ask me. Well, what happened, Al? Why? You know, what happened over the last 20 years? What made you, man? I never thought I'd see the day that you blah, 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 blah. Right. Whatever it is.
Right.
But yeah, so now I know in Man Did You See, we talked about the cussing pastor. Maybe we should call it the cussing pastors, because there's many of them.
Yeah, there are a few out there.
So what in the word? So I was looking, and for those of you who, you know, I know we have these deep theological debates, you know, and they typically revolve around things that we don't want to give up, you know, like,
right.
So is cursing really a sin, and did they actually curse in biblical times? You know, we get those, and you know, it's tithing Old Testament or New Testament, but it's not for this show. I'm just giving you some things we like to debate. I think I even heard, so what exactly is fornication? Like, you know, we get into these deep theological debates, right? But today the one is that unruly tongue is the one we're talking about today.
Mouth almighty.
So just for the Bible scholars, Ephesians 5:4 says, "Let there be no filthiness, nor foolish talk, nor crude joking, which are out of place, but instead let there be thanksgiving." Now, you know, is it a sin? I'm not keeping the sin scorebook, but,
all right, but so here's the issue, Alton. It's amazing how we want to go to heaven, but we don't want to live for God down here.
Yes, because we want the experience of God, but not God's heart. Right. So, and now for a second, because again, I want to be just a little bit careful that as we start to talk about pastors doing foolish stuff, that we don't some kind of way make it the people's fault.
Yeah.
Right. So, okay. So I want to if we can just, I want to stay right in that space for a second, because all too often that's what happens. The people are the reason for our mess ups. Yeah, if the people would just do this, then I wouldn't have to. Right.
Aaron,
exactly.
The people say they wanted another God.
They want another God.
He said, we pointed, and poof, out came this calf.
Out came the calf.
This just happened.
So I think part of the problem is this. So at the end of the day, we do all of this, all this religion stuff, because we want to spend eternity with Jesus. Right. At the end of the day, like if we can simplify it to its most basic need.
Right.
You know, it hit me the other day that we spend more time, even when we preaching about heaven, we preach about mansions, crowns, and gold street.
The stuff that we're gonna get in heaven.
The stuff we're gonna get.
Instead of who's there.
Even in eternity, as we teach on eternity. So it's no surprise to me that we got to keep pushing the envelope in our message, because we're so focused on what we get. Even when we talk about eternity, I want my crown, I want my mansion. For the record, just let me get in. Let me get in and be with Jesus, and y'all can figure the rest of it.
Previous acts, I just want to make it in.
And I'm gonna go out on a limb, and maybe I'm being a little bit presumptuous here, but I'm imagining there's no ghettos in heaven.
Right.
So maybe.
We stayed at a really, really nice place when we were in Vegas.
That's right.
Us and our wives.
Yeah.
Us and our wives within my wife.
In 2 separate rooms, me and my wife and him and his wife. Just
all this.
You got to fix all these disclaimers.
Man, it's crazy. So, and we go in there like, oh, this is nice and hidden. Do you think that can even compare?
No, sir.
To what God has put together?
Nope.
It won't even be close.
Nope.
We probably gonna spend the first 10,000 years with our mouth wide open, like, wow.
First of all, 5,000 to 10,000, I'm just gonna have to monopolize Jesus, because I'm like, Jesus, so you remember when this situation happened? Can you tell me what was really going on?
Those are gonna be some of the greatest conversations.
I
don't know when my time is gonna come up. Y'all may be a million years in, and then my time comes up to talk. Like, man, but while y'all talking to Jesus, because I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be there for all the worship. Then I'm gonna go find some of the disciples and be like, man, tell me what was happening.
Right. And Michael, you saw it all.
Michael.
Michael. So, but anyway, we get off topic. But where I'm going with this is so we live in this world now where everything is about instant gratification and measurable objectives, right? And so even church, how many do you have in the pew? How much you collected on a given week, and all of those things. And so now we've gotten to the point where we're just, in some cases, flat out irreverent in the way we deal with church, God, right? And I mean, I think the thing that probably jumped out to me from the video that you showed me was not even so much the cussing pastor, because after he cussed the first time, my shock was over. But I was mortified by the way the people got behind it.
Right. They were amening and clapping it.
Right.
And so now you are teaching people bad behavior. This is how false doctrine and foolishness gets out there, because now what will happen is, if your pastor did it, I can begin to justify it in my mind that it's okay to do. And then now I'm running around cussing everybody out, talking about I love Jesus.
That's right.
It's like, come on now. That's the reason why I place the greatest responsibility on those who are serving God in kingdom capacities. I know we all ministers and that everybody, I get all that, but there are certain offices that God places you in where the requirement is higher.
That's right.
Hophni and Phineas were killed because they were in a certain office.
That's right.
And they were abusing people, and it cost them their lives. And so as ministers of the gospel, we got to have a high standard.
That's right.
That's all there is to it, because we have a greater responsibility. If not, give them back the anniversary check. Don't take the honorarium. No, none of that. The housing allowance, the car allowance, none of that. Don't take none of that thing.
Right. That's right.
But when you have a higher level of responsibility, you're called upon to do things differently. And even when I'm forced to change, I still got to change.
That's right.
I got to change, because people's lives are on the line.
That's right.
People are the priority.
That's right. And so let's talk a little bit around just the act of cussing and what makes it so destructive.
Just thrilling. Just thrilling to be.
And again, so I talk about my New Orleans upbringing, and I, you've been down there. Cussing is an adjective.
It is.
Right? It describes a person, place, or thing.
It's regular conversation.
It adds a level of intensity. It's regular. It doesn't mean we're mad. It doesn't even mean insult.
Right.
It just means that we're demonstrative about a specific feeling.
That's it.
And so that was a bit of a shift for me, to have to really start to understand the nature of cursing. Because again, and it's funny now, because transformed, right? So now I'm in a place, and I think I keep my poker face on physically, but internally, as I'm having conversations with certain people, and every other word is a cuss word, I'm just like, Now, I'm not living in this world where, well, I'm a pastor now, you're being disrespectful. No, you're doing what you do.
Right.
And so be it, and I'm not mad at you for that, but it doesn't sit well in my spirit. One here or there, is cool, but I think I told you I was walking down Elm Street, my wife and I, on Friday night, and there's a guy, he's riding a motorcycle. So he has his motorcycle tricked out, all the audio and everything, got the subwoofers and everything. It's a motorcycle, so the music's got to be louder than the motorcycle itself.
Absolutely.
And he's playing some of the filthiest music. Now, I can't be a hypocrite, because that little red truck that used to run up and down New Orleans was bumping from blocks away. And
with the tinted windows.
With the tinted windows and there's 15-inch subs in the back. And make no mistake about it, if you didn't know Luke Skywalker, you were gonna know him that day. Doo-doo Brown. But so I can't be judgmental just because I'm in a different place now.
Right.
But I was just like, oh, can you turn that down? Not even because I'm offended, because I'm just looking around. I'm sensitive to how do we show up in front of people who are not African American? What does this reinforce certain stereotypes?
Right.
What do we display into kids, and all of the various mixtures of people that are down there. So what's the issue with cursing?
So I've seen that in many cases it is like you said, demonstrative. It is trying to reinforce something, to really let someone know how you feel about a certain thing. It's just that there are so many other adjectives, there are so many other words in various languages that can convey that same thing and the depth of how you feel. But what we do is, since profanity in most cases is not used constantly, then we insert that and say, okay, hey, if I insert this in here, you'll know exactly how I feel about this particular situation.
That's right.
So like I said, I'm not tripping on anybody. If you sometimes, because I've seen in some situations where the profanity actually worked. It got somebody to understand.
Some jokers need a little adjective here and there.
You need to understand exactly what was going on here, the forcefulness of it. But my issue is with when you use that for the kingdom's sake, for the gospel's sake. When you're trying to now minimize the intelligence, the wisdom, the authority of Jesus, and break it down to just common words that are expletives that should not be used in context with Jesus.
That's right. That's right.
Something got to change.
So I know we're out of time, so I want to share this, and I got a thought for our next episode. But Matthew says, "But I tell you that everyone will have to give account on the day of judgment for every empty word they have spoken. For by your words you will be acquitted, and by your words you will be condemned." Right? Right. So, but you said something I thought was interesting, and maybe we can dig into that a little bit more. How we act in the pulpit versus how we act outside of the pulpit, and is that okay to be different? I think that would be an interesting conversation, because that's actually one of the biggest critiques of non-believers.
Yes.
Is the hypocrisy in their mind, the hypocrisy of me being one person when I'm in the pulpit and being somebody else when I'm out.
And how many people's lives have we damaged because we were inconsistent?
That
I'm gifted to be able to disseminate this message to you.
That's right.
But
when I come out,
I become somebody.
I'm just as ratchet as you are. Wow. We got to talk about that. But anyway, so we at the end. Like, subscribe, share, comment, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Get at us, leave some comments, share it. Please make sure you like and subscribe as well. I know most of you check us out on Facebook, but go over to YouTube and at least subscribe to the channel. We'd appreciate that.
Get some other brothers in here. This is the manual, the playbook on manhood. He's the professor. Alton Woods, I'm Chip Rice. Until next time.